Hi, my name is Emily Perry, and welcome back to Youth News. Today, I'm joined with Arianna and Lauryn. And today, we're gonna have a very personal but necessary conversation. Being Black in the United States is a lived experience that only people in the community can truly understand. Even though many would like to believe that we live in a post-racial society, many Black people in this country believe it's the exact opposite. So now, it's time to get started. Arianna, how have you experienced racism in your everyday life?
Well, I remember being as young as in 3rd grade and seeing in my textbooks that slaves were treated fairly, equal, were paid good money to work in the fields and pick cotton and live in the house and be the masters, or do their everyday chores, take care of the kids. In the South, in the heat, they were paid well and just did all this, that, and the third. I was taught that in 3rd grade. And because of my background, because of how I was raised, I knew then that wasn't right. But I could only think of how many other young Black kids were being taught this. And even kids who weren't Black were being taught this as, this is factual because it's in my textbooks. It's in the system, it's in the school systems, it's being implemented into our minds. So this is what we're supposed to believe, right? Because you're supposed to sit and listen and take in what you learn in school. What you learn in school is supposed to be factual. It's supposed to be your history.
You would think that they wouldn't try to wash over what actually happened.
Right. And at that point, it's, well, no wonder why we have George Floyd. No wonder why we have a Tatiana Jefferson. No wonder why we have all these killings, senseless killings happen. No wonder why we're still in square one from where we were in 1960s.
Exactly. This country hasn't fully began to face the true realities of what happened in the past.
True.
And it's not until that we stop whitewashing our textbooks and stop trying to paint it as if it was this perfect, holistic, symbiotic relationship between Black people and white people in the past that we can fully get to the root of the evil that was present in this country and unfortunately to this day is still here.
Right. Exactly. And I think so many people, they're not oblivious to it. I think they're aware, but maybe they're just in denial. Because I get what you're talking about. And I remember when I was all throughout my life, I've attended predominantly white schools, so I know what it's like to be the only Black student in the class. And many times that made me feel a little bit out of place, especially during Black History Month, whenever we would talk about like Ruby Bridges or we watched The Help. And I'll never forget, I was in 4th grade, and we were talking about segregation during that period because we were watching the Ruby Bridges movie, and as our teacher was explaining that this is how Black people were treated, I remember a boy sitting next to me, I'll never forget, he said, "Yay, I'm white." Then he looked at me and said, "Haha, you're Black." Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And you know, looking back on that now, I think this just goes to show, like we're continuing to perpetuate this whole system of racism and just ignorance. And I would like to honestly empower all of our Black youth to advocate for themselves and set people straight whenever they make comments like that. You can say, listen, I know I come from greatness, and if you would research my history, you would know that too.
Definitely. There's a reason why, and like you said, I don't think people are I don't think people just don't realize it or don't notice the racism that's still going on, but I think they choose to deny it, like you said, in denial. But there is still, there's a reason why growing up as a Black individual, we are taught to obey police officers. We're taught to keep your hands on the steering wheel, do whatever they say. It doesn't matter if you disagree, it doesn't matter how you feel towards it, don't react, because you are liable to die. That could be the day you die. That could be your death date right there. That bullet has your name on it if you don't comply with what they say. It's crazy. I don't know if you guys have heard, but it's like, why are civilians, why are Black civilians supposed to behave in the face of the danger, but when a police officer says, oh, I'm being threatened by a Black man with a hairbrush, they can shoot at free will?
Exactly. You would think, these police officers, they are the ones who are armed. They are the ones who have a gun, have a taser, have a baton with them. They have all the methods of protection with them. When a black person is completely stripped of any security that they may have in that situation.
Right.
And like such experiences like this white boy who looked at you and said, ha ha, he will never have to experience that feeling of helplessness that any other black person would feel having an encounter with a police officer, because that is just something that is not perpetuated to them. Or if it is perpetuated to white people, it's in the sense of that, oh, the officers are the one in danger. Oh, the officers are the ones who are really being put in danger and are threatened here. Not the helpless black lives that are being lost.
Right, definitely. I believe that as a race, as black people in general, we need to stop being in the mindset of, hey, it's all right, comply, and we need to start standing up for ourselves. But I'm also kind of backed into a corner because, well, the killings aren't going to stop happening.
Absolutely.
It's not like if we stand up for ourselves like we've tried to do multiple times, if we lay in bed and don't do anything like Breonna Taylor, we're gonna die anyway. So should we, or should we just continue to comply? Obviously, sorry.
No, you are all
Obviously,
good.
I wanna say no, we need to stand up for ourselves, because how else are we gonna be heard?
Yeah, I have moderate views on that. Of course, you know, in the moment you comply because your life is on the line, obviously.
Yeah.
But we still should stand up and advocate for ourselves. And I think it starts at the top. They need to be held accountable for it. So whenever these police officers are murdering these innocent black people, they need to obviously be prosecuted, not just fired, and they need to go to prison for a long time, because hopefully, and you know, this is just my hope, but hopefully it can be a deterrent to others, and it will show them, like, listen, if you gun down unarmed black people, you will face major repercussions for it, because this is not okay. And I think for a long time in our society, it's been brushed under the rug. It's been dismissed. Like, look at what happened to Emmett Till. They got off easily.
Carolyn Ryan is still free, still living.
Yeah.
We know her address and everything. She has not faced any criminal action whatsoever.
Exactly. So then that brings about the question, how can we as a community bring this to action and put people like her in prison where they belong?
I definitely agree, but I also think we should also take a look at how we treat ourselves, because I also am still a strong believer in nobody's going to respect us if we don't respect ourselves. We see black on black crime all of the time, 24/7. We do it more than white on black crime. We are always hearing about somebody killing them because, oh, they looked at me wrong. Oh, I'm gonna kill you because I want your shoes. I'm gonna kill you because this person doesn't like you and that's my person, and all this, that, and that's, how do we expect any change to come when we're not even changing ourselves for the better?
Absolutely.
As a race, we have degraded ourselves. We are putting ourselves at a standstill in that alone.
Yeah, so it starts with, of course, as you're saying, like respecting ourselves, empowering our black youth. And I think like we need more educational opportunities for like black children, like as young as like grade school. Because I recently did a research project for one of my classes on inequalities in public schools between predominantly white schools and affluent communities, and like minority schools and like lower income communities too. And what I found was really disturbing, and it was honestly just egregious, because I found that minority schools and lower income communities obviously receive less funding compared to like their counterparts, because school districts depend on property taxes to fund their schools, and when you live in poverty, you don't have the resources for that, which I think is why, like, throughout our nation's history, unfortunately many, not all, but many, like, minority schools are on the lower end of the academic spectrum. That's a problem. We need to fix that.
Definitely.
And nobody wants to talk about those discussions.
Exactly. It
right.
starts at the root. It starts when these black kids are children, because if they start internalizing this idea that they are inferior, that they are lesser than their white peers, then they will never have that feeling that they are powerful enough to unite and to band together and to truly feel like they can overcome the suppression that they've been facing their entire lives.
Definitely. Representation definitely does matter, and we need to advocate for ourselves. We need to get out there and say, hey, there is no reason why a black child, by the age of 17, you should know who Ruby Bridges is. You should know who Emmett Till is. You should know these stories, but a lot of kids don't. A lot of black kids are like, who's that? You should know who the KKK is. You should know what Jim Crow laws are. We were learning about that in class, and a lot of kids were like, I've never heard of it. And I was sitting back in disbelief, like, you really don't know what Jim Crow laws were? You really don't? Do you know, I was sitting there, I said, do you know what the last slave ship to come to America was? They were like, no. And I was like, you don't? You don't know your own history. And that is the saddest, that's so sad to me. But it's not a priority. It's not. Black history is not a priority. We love to emphasize white culture and white race because that's what America was founded on. And it's sad.
But it's not equally shared in the black community.
Right. Your truth, I'm not saying that it's still history. But if we're going to acknowledge your history, we need to acknowledge all history.
Absolutely.
We have to understand that, hey, who really created peanut butter? Who really invented this? Who really did that? Hey, yeah, you sell the shit, but who built the country?
And who helped build the White House too?
Right.
And it's until we acknowledge all of those important aspects of black culture that we can fully embrace the black culture, society, and everybody as a whole. So thank you for your opinions. And the conversation doesn't have to start or stop with us. Please continue the conversation at WatchYNN.